Of the Pleasant Grove City Council on this Tuesday, March the 17th, 2020. And welcome everybody here. We have all of our council members present and a lot of our staff present who is with us spread out throughout the building. And we have our city manager who is on the conference call with us. You're there, aren't you, Scott?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So we'd like to start this evening with a Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Anderson, after which Councilmember Jensen will give us opening remarks.
All right, please rise. Repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, as we bow our heads before you this evening at the start of the City Council meeting, we are mindful of everything that is going on around us in this trying time for not only our nation but for our city. We ask that that would be with our first responders and our staff, that as we push through this epidemic that we have going on within our country, that we know to do so in a calm and steady hand. Again, we're grateful for all that we have in this community and the wonderful citizens. We say these things humbly. In the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen. Thank you, Eric and Diana. We also welcome all who have joined us electronically this evening. And we'll now move on to our approval of tonight's meeting agenda. I don't think we have any changes.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And we'll now move to our open session. And we'll now ask if anybody would like to come forward and address the council at this time. I don't see anyone but staff in the audience, so we'll now close our open session.
But really quick, Mayor, is there anyone online? Tyler, can you tell from the YouTube channel that might want to comment for the open session? Just you. Okay.
Anybody online that would like to?
I think Scott's having problems.
Do we just
Okay, we'll now declare our open session closed, and we will move on to item number 6, our consent items this evening, which can include item A, City Council minutes for our last 3 meetings, B, a project approval for final payment for ESP excavation, and C, to consider for approval of payment approval reports from for our normal things from February 27th and March 5th and 12th of 2020. So I'd ask for a motion for these
Mayor,
consent
I
items.
make a motion to approve tonight's consent items.
We have a motion by Councilmember Jensen
And a second?
and a second by Councilmember Anderson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent items pass unanimously. Now, we do not have any board commission reports or presentations. We'll now move into our item number 9 this evening, our public hearing. Public hearing to consider for adoption Resolution 2020-014, adjusting and amending revenues and expenditures of the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget. Director Roy, would you address us?
Yeah, I'm just going to summarize the actual resolution. So one of the first items we have is we need to appropriate $75,000 to refurbish the slides at the pool from the community pool fund balance. The next item is we're in the process of finishing the Valley Vista Trail Phase 3. We need to appropriate $17,000 more out of impact fees just to make sure that we've just finished the project. It's not an overage. We just need to appropriate the total dollars. The next one is, if you remember in the budget, we adopted $31,200 for community development to do some contract work while we were waiting for a plan or some other things. We haven't needed to use those dollars, but we'd like to move that into the capital project fund and use that to update the city's general plan. I know that Daniel's working on an RFP to put that out, to get some help to finish that. The next one is just some things that need to be done at the Manila Pond and the Battle Creek filters. That will be coming out of secondary water. That's $30,000 as we move into irrigation here in April. And then the next one is just a cleanup item. We have budget in 2 different areas, and Marty and I discussed that we just need to move that into one project called the Filter and Diversion Project 2020. So that's just a cleanup item. The money's been budgeted. We just want to consolidate that. And then there's just been a couple of projects. The Anderson well repair, I think the note said that there's been 12 repairs there just recently. So we need to make some changes there. So we need to appropriate $40,000, and then the Monson booster pump replacement for $40,000. So those are 2 things that need to be done.
Okay, is there any other questions by the council before we open up our public hearing?
I'll wait. I'll wait till after.
You'll wait, okay. Thank you, Denise. Now, if not, I'd like to now open up our public hearing and ask anyone to come forward and address the council on this resolution. And if anybody sees there's no one coming forward now, is there anyone online on the call-in that would like to address the council at this time?
Okay. Ki-
It's just Scott and myself on there right now.
Oh,
So
okay, all right, so we have no one who wants to address us on our,
Mayor, just really quick, Kyler, is there anyone watching online?
just myself and Scott. There's 2
Okay,
viewers.
There's 2 of us. I'm watching, and Kyler, I think, is watching.
okay. Just
wow,
checking.
big crowd tonight, so anyway, so let's, I will now close the public hearing and bring it back up to the council for any further discussion. Councilman?
Yeah, Mayor, my only question was, Denise, was I think it was the 31,000 for the community development that was set aside for a potential of staffing help, right? To help
Yeah.
the staff. And we could technically move that into maybe, because we've recently done the wage study, so we technically could that be used for that or not?
Yeah, but we set money aside for the wage study. This is one-time money. This is not ongoing. I mean, this would be really considered one-time money. When we adopted it for the 2020 budget, was with the idea that development was still progressing, and we still needed that help, with the idea that when development started to slow down, we would take those dollars back. And so it was for staff help at the time. Scott and Daniel and I have discussed that the general plan is a bigger project than, it's going to take time, and we're probably going to have some additional money, even using a consultant. So we're just asking to reallocate those dollars to be able to move that general plan forward at a quicker pace,
Okay,
so.
thank you.
So if I can just chime in real quickly, the intent was for that money was to have Daniel be able to contract certain things out to free up staff time for some of the ongoing operations. And the thing that's been targeted is to update our general plan by using a consultant as opposed to using staff time. And so by combining this year's dollars and next year's dollars, should be enough money to contract out the general plan so that it will get done, as opposed to kind of being one of those things that gets set to the side when we run out of time on the day-to-day operations, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Scott. Anything else, council? If not,
Thing that
You
Denise
bet.
said.
Go ahead, Marty.
So there was actually, on that Anderson well repairs, there were 2 items there. We had the one weekend that we had those 12 leaks or so, 12 to 15. Still, some of them were small, but that took a lot of time and effort and money. as well as we've had the Anderson well has had a lot of issues, mainly with a check valve that we've had a lot of work done on that for our maintenance and repair budget. And so those are actually two different projects that are causing that needed increase. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't 12 issues with the Anderson well. It was one issue, but we had the 12 leak weekend. We also had some testing costs that have increased significantly to do all the testing. So just to clarify on that item.
Okay, thank you, Marty. There's no other question. I would ask for a motion for resolution number 2020-014.
Mayor, I make a motion for adoption of Resolution 2020-14, adjusting and amending the revenues and expenditures of the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget
And I'll
providing
sec,
for an effective date.
and provide for effective date.
and I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Jensen, a second by Councilmember Anderson. This will be a roll call vote, and let me get to my sheet. Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock,
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Thank you, passes unanimously. We'll now move on to our one action item we have this evening, 10A, to consider for adoption Resolution 2020-015, authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement with the Utah Retirement Systems regarding the public employee long-term disability payments for Tier 2 for service employees and providing for an effective date. Chief Thomas, would you address us?
Mayor and council, thanks for considering this. In the Utah retirement system, in the firefighter Utah retirement system, there are two tiers. A tier 1, which is for older firefighters, and I say that because the legislature made a change several years ago. They also have a tier 2. Now, in the tier 1, then the URS provides long-term disability for the tier 1 employees. For tier 2, then they in 2011 the legislature passed code requiring that those tier 2 employees get long-term disability. The interesting part of that is that somewhere along the line, maybe because we're a new department and we're actually one of 2 departments in the state that just somehow missed this contract. And they notified me just recently saying that we don't have this. So we are required to provide long-term disability to tier 2 firefighters. The legislature provided a funding mechanism for that through the fire insurance premium tax. So there's no cost to the city. So what we're looking at tonight is a contract between PEHP and the city to provide that long-term disability. It's a free benefit. Director Darrington and, or Administrator Darrington and City Attorney Tina has looked at this, and what you have in front of you is there for your approval.
Any questions for Chief Thomas? If not, I'd ask for a motion on Resolution 2020-015.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-015, authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement with the Utah Retirement Systems regarding the Public Employees Long-Term Disability Program for Tier 2 for service employees and providing for an effective date.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Councilmember Bullock. And this will be a roll call vote, and we'll start out with Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. We will now move on. Thanks, Chief. And we'll now move on for our discussion items this evening. And our first one, Scotty, you're going to take the lead on this here a little bit and discuss where we're at so far on that, on our monument sign.
Yes, I'll take the lead on these next couple discussion items. On this one, I sent out an email last week. Inquiring some thoughts and opinions on our monument sign that we'd like to put out on the corner of First East and Center Street. Dion and his guys kind of put up a mock sign, what it would look like as far as how high it could be and how big it would be. And the feedback that we got is that it needs to be higher and it needs to be bigger. And I think the placement of where the sign is, I think everybody's okay with that, kind of that general area, with the understanding that the rest of that property is just going to be landscaped. We'll put some sod down and just have a nice grass area out there. And then around the monument sign, Dion and his people are working on some recommendations for the types of flowers and things that we want to put around that. And we talked a little bit about it earlier today in our staff meeting, and Daniel was going to check the code to see how big this could be. So Daniel, were you able to find anything if we have a size restriction on how big the digital sign can be?
Yes, sir. So not just that, but I also found out that, by the way, this is Daniel. Hi, everybody. This is the sign should be backed up a little bit more. So we need to have at least a triangle of 25 feet. So I want to measure, it needs to be a little bit brought back a little bit more. And depending on the type of sign that we want to do, if it's a monument sign or a freestanding sign, the dimensions vary a lot. For example, if we're going to go with a freestanding sign, that's the one that has kind of like the poles holding the sign. We can go to 200 square feet, and we can go as tall as 35 feet. But if we go with a monument sign, the one that is kind of like attached to the landscape, that one we can only go to a maximum of 32 square feet of sign area and 4 feet, but with the recommendation of the Director of Community Development, which is me, we can go to 6 feet tall.
Okay, so if I understand that, you're saying up to 6 feet tall on the monument sign, and when you say 32 square feet, that means we can go up to like a 4x8.
Correct. Now,
Okay.
out of those 32 square footage for the sign, for the actual sign of it, only half of that can be used electronically, and so meaning that we will only have 16 square feet of an electronic sign. The rest of it is still part of the monument sign. It's still a sign, but for the electronic portion, we can only use half of that 32 square feet.
Daniel, what is the, or maybe Dion, what is the size of the mock-up right now? What, is that a 4x8?
It was a 3x5, if I remember right. But Daniel, are you saying that
It's a
the
3x6?
largest we can go is only 16 square feet on the actual digital sign?
Or 32.
Correct.
And,
For a monument sign, yes.
and on the
16
monument
is the maximum we can
sign,
go, and the,
But like, what about like at the high school, their sign? I mean, that's a pretty big one.
so my question is, you're saying on a
Yeah,
monument sign, we
isn't
can
the
only
high
go up to
school one
6 feet?
attached to a wall.
What's that?
Isn't the high school sign attached to a wall?
No, it's not. It's a monument sign out in front of the school on a stone base.
Okay.
Can I just
This-
answer
this-
that question?
These
They are
dimensions
not
that I'm
required
giving
to
you
get a
are the
sign
ones that
permit from us.
if we just amended the code, I think exactly about 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, and these are the dimensions that we designed around that time that will fit our design standards for that zone.
So the school district's exempt from that? Okay. So can we be exempt too?
How do we
I'm just
change it?
kidding.
Because we need, I think we need it bigger.
Yeah, we need it bigger. So what's,
again-
6x8 is good.
So Daniel, my question is, again, you're saying a monument sign can only be 6 feet high.
Correct.
off the base or from the ground,
That's useless.
ground level up?
From the ground.
Car is 5 feet tall.
Then on up. Hey, would you come forward and talk to us?
I think there's two options, Daniel. Maybe make sure this is clear. You can have a sign up in the air, but the size is smaller. If you do a monument size on the ground, it's 32 square feet. But if you put it up in the air, then what is the requirement? Daniel, I thought you said there was a different requirement if it's up in the air.
Yeah, so let's just be clear. We've been calling the marquee sign. That's not a marquee sign. Marquee signs are the ones that are attached to the building. So we have two options right now. We have the option of a monument sign. The monument sign is the one that is kind of like, it's a bar that is coming out of the ground. And that's kind of like the picture that Commissioner Jensen sent to, Commissioner, sorry, I think I'm talking to Planning
Yeah,
Commission.
don't give
That
him that
Council
title.
Member Jensen sent to me. That's a monument sign. That's only 32. If we work right now with what we have and go for a freestanding sign, which is kind of like a pole sign, the one that is lit from the ground at least 10 feet, we can go 200 square feet on that one.
And give me a dimension on what's 200 square feet.
10 by 20.
He said
10 by 20.
if you
10
raise
by
it off the
20.
ground at least 10 feet, then you can do up to a 200 square foot sign.
Okay.
But that's kind of, that's
You wanna go 10
too
feet?
No, that's too high.
The top of your sign right now is at 8 feet.
Right.
Yeah, we don't want it crazy.
Sorry, there's going to be a cost jump
That's the other thing, too.
when we go really high. I mean, I think, I haven't cost them out, Dion, but common sense tells me that a monument sign's probably cheaper. Right, Dion?
Well, and I think we were talking with how close it
Yes.
is.
But it depends on how big the sign is, and we're only talking 10 feet.
Correct.
We're not talking 30 feet in the air. 10 feet's not that far,
think we're-
really. But, so it just depends, the foundation that you're gonna put the pole in, depends on how big the sign is, and the post size, it's all determined by that, so.
I like the
This
looks.
would be 10 feet right here.
That's probably tall, that's probably
So-
12.
Oh, that's probably
I'm
12
looking
or
right now-
Bottom of the
15.
sign.
I'm looking at the sign. I'm looking at the high school sign, and that's the one on 200 South. That's a pole sign. That's not a monument sign.
Right.
Right.
If you guys
I like
take a
the
look,
looks of a
it's a pole
monument
sign.
sign better,
Yeah.
I do too.
but I just think it needs to be bigger than a 4x8 or even a 3x6.
Sherry, you want to come forward and speak into the mic
4
there?
by 8 is
so-
actually really big when you're looking at it.
Not if you're long ways away. Not if you're coming up the road or,
Okay.
So the estimate that I got was for a pole sign. And so that's,
Okay.
that was about $40,000 to have the upgrades that we've talked about with the stone and, or brick, that kind of thing.
electronic.
For a base? Oh,
Yeah, for electronic. Yeah. And I've seen some pole signs that I think are actually really attractive, but
Okay. I haven't seen, I think we'd love to see them.
Okay.
I think if Eric had some renderings and then Sherry did too, and then that will give us an idea of like what we're looking at. I think we're leaning towards like a stone or brick base and not having it quite so high up because it was gonna be so close to 100 and Center. The people, I mean, it's not very far off the road, so we didn't want it too high up to where if you were at those stoplights, you couldn't see the signage.
But didn't Daniel say we
Has
have
it?
to move it back
Yeah.
25 feet?
so Daniel said that we have a 25-foot setback
Yeah.
rule in the downtown village.
So it's not as close as what it looks out there on.
It's going to be set back further.
or as close as the
No, I
current
think it needs to be
library one
closer
is.
to.
Yeah,
the
it doesn't.
corner.
Sorry, it doesn't have to be set back exactly 25 feet. Like we have to create a 25 feet side triangle, which when we run the math will be
Oh,
about.
yeah.
So
That's not
this is
separate.
how we do it. We find the intersection of the property lines. We go 25 each way, and then cut it right there in a triangle. So it needs to set back a little bit more than what it is right now. But I don't have the exact number right now unless they go and measure right there.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. And just so all of you can get a visual, I'm not sure what size of the high school one is, but I went up and measured the one at Manila Elementary, and it's an 8x3 on the building.
On the one attached to the building?
The one attached to a building.
Gosh, do we have
It's a-
footage
it's a
of
how
you
big,
measuring
Mayor?
that?
I'm sorry, I didn't get, what was the size?
8x3.
Do we know the size of the one on American Fork Main Street that's in their park? Because that might give you kind of a good idea too.
You don't. I drove by it a couple of times, but I haven't stopped and measured it yet, but anyway.
And let me
I would say,
path forward. Let me and Daniel, Sherry, and John sit down with some sign people and create options, both the monument sign and
Yeah.
the pole sign.
And
And we'll get
prices.
all this information. We'll get a cost estimate and bring this back to you and give you guys in essence some options because you're asking a lot of questions that we don't really have answers for right now.
Okay.
And we give us couple weeks, we can gather that, we can bring it back to you, and then you'll have some visuals and things you can see to say, okay, you're on the right path or not.
Yeah, I think that would help.
We good with that, council?
Thank
Okay, thanks, Scott. We'll go do it that. So we'll move to 11B, Scott.
This is, and if Marty has a chance to put a visual up here, this is the pickleball courts and the parking. Initially, when we were looking at this, we talked about just really over parking it to accommodate some of the parking issues we run into, namely January, February, and then again right around April and May. January, February is when we have probably our best turnout to the rec center, and then April and May is when some of the high school students, namely the sophomores, start driving, and they need a place to park. So we talked about creating a parking lot to make sure that we accommodate our people, the rec center patrons, and those that are going to be using the pickleball courts. So we wanted to make sure we had something that made sense for us. As I've looked at that, I think we have about 120 stalls in that parking lot. I think that might be too much parking unless we want to open that parking up to the students and maybe inquire with the high school to see if they'd be interested in paying for a part of the parking lot, which if we did, then we would need to guarantee them a certain amount of parking stalls. If the city is not interested in that, then I would recommend we reduce the size of our parking lot, and then we'll need to work on kind of an enforcement when the time comes that if the students are looking for somewhere to park. So it's going to be hard to have, a parking lot there with 40 open stalls, and we have students that are, parking along the road and things like that, trying to find a place to park. So I'm just looking for some feedback from the council if it would be okay if we talk to the school district about participating and keeping that parking lot bigger, or if we're more interested in limiting the size of the parking lot and just focusing on our patrons.
So where are we at, council?
Well, and we also need to entertain the idea of the armory too, because you have potential there if we could get our hands on that for
That's better, you're right.
yeah, for additional parking. That could
for the
actually
school.
help for the school. That could help.
I'd rather have the conversation with the school about the armory
Yeah.
than this block.
Yeah, I think we're gonna need this for our patrons for the pickleball and the rec center because we're already short, and then have a conversation about the armory, if that's a possibility. But I think we're gonna need all of this.
Sid, when you say that,
We
you're
all
saying
list for
120 spots?
Well, not just that, but it's during the school year for the rec center, preschool. I mean, you go there on any morning when your kids are dropping off to preschool and parents are working out and they're lying down Locust. So I think we need that right now for our patrons at the rec center, Funshine, the programs we have going on. It'll be pickleball. I think we're gonna need every parking space that we have there right now.
Scott, are we thinking that we want that, we have that much parking because we want to shift the pickleball courts a little bit more north to accommodate Veterans Park? Is that why we
No.
have? I mean, why
No,
do we have that much parking?
Well, the intent is this parking lot is about $3,000 a stall. And so if we're going to overpark it, let's say we overpark it by 40 stalls, we're paying $120,000 for stalls that are going to be wide open for really a majority of the year. And that's my concern.
Hence
we
the
do
question. I mean, that's hence the question. So, I mean, why do we have 120 spots? Why do we build 120 spots into here?
So if you remember originally, as we were looking at this concept, there was 110 stalls that we were discussing as being available. And as we then kind of refined the concept, we were able to pick up a few more right here on the access road. So the location really hasn't changed to the pickleball courts, and this is a space available to build parking. Now, the reality is if you park from here all the way up to Veterans Park, you have about 30 cars if they were just butt to butt on the cars, right? You have 30 that could be parked there.
You mean end to end?
Yes, head to head. So if we say that during a weekday, we've got people parking on Locust all the way up to Veterans Park, we're talking about 30 cars.
Okay.
We are talking about having 120 stalls just in this parking lot, right? So if it's only 30 that we need and you got pickleballs, you've got eight pickleball courts, let's say that you need another 30 for that, you're sitting at 60. But obviously, we might want to do more than that. Maybe we do 80. But the reality is I think what Scott's trying to say is, let's not overbuild, because it does cost us $3,000 per stall. And that way, if we're going 40 extra stalls, we're talking $120,000 that we're not going to be able to utilize. I mean, maybe, how effectively are we utilizing that
So
$120,000?
but that's the question. Why did we build it with 120 spots?
We're not building it yet. We haven't decided.
Well, okay, I know, but why is the rendering here with 120 spots?
Again, we understood that that's the direction we wanted to go when we started with the 110.
So Marty, I
Well-
do have a question. Is we just have
Can I
recently
jump
had,
in?
really quick, just really quick.
Eric is talking here.
Okay.
Is this safety of cars backing out onto Locust? Because we
Yeah.
just had that conversation with the business per se, right? Are we creating a hazard here?
Right.
I can go ahead and answer that because it's not an intersection and it's not a high-speed street such as Center
it's a
Street.
high-speed
And
street
so
to
when they
me.
back out, the speed limit on Locust is about 25, so there shouldn't be any conflict with.
Correct, I agree.
So
So, and Marty, just tell me very quickly, how many stalls diagonally can we fit on Locust
So
itself?
there's about 19 additional stalls you can gain by doing diagonal parking.
Is this all the way over to Viking, the drag?
It's through phase 1 and phase 2 to essentially the current Veterans Park.
Okay.
I'm
is
just saying
the
that because that's what Marty had said about some other parking in different areas of the city.
So,
Is that, I don't know if that's
yeah,
accurate,
no,
Marty?
that was good.
I feel like I'm a
I
parking
wouldn't
expert.
say that there's no concern on diagonal parking when you've got high school kids running up any road.
That's a good point.
But the reality is it is a 25-mile-an-hour road. We do have a bike lane. We do have a little bit of extra space. However, if we're talking about adding, again, we're going to have 48 stalls here. We're going to have 121 stalls here. So we're talking about 169 stalls available between, the north end of the new park and here. That's the question. Sorry, Scott, you can go in.
Can I
Well,
ask-
I just want to address Todd's question. So initially, when we put this together, it was my instruction to overpark it, to get as much parking in there as possible. It is after I've reflected a little further and have looked at this concept plan, I'm starting to think that this is overparked, that we'll have a huge parking lot that will be sitting empty on a fairly regular basis. And so as I've reflected on that, that's when I've turned to Marty and say, Marty, how much is it per stall? If we're to eliminate 40 of these things, save us $120,000, then we want to consider that. Or we can partner with the school, and maybe they'll want the additional stalls. Because the reality is, when we get into April and May, we do have students that, in essence, we have to enforce this ourselves. We've asked the school to enforce it, and they don't do a very good job. And so we've had employees out there protecting our stalls in our regular parking lot outside the rec center. And so I want to make sure that our patrons, because in April and May, if we have students gumming up all the parking, then our patrons don't have somewhere to park. January, February, we do have our parking lot gets full because of our usage, and then people are trying to find a place to park. And so when we get into June, July, August, really probably from June until January, there's not going to be many people parking here outside of pickleballers that are going to come play. And if we were to fill up on pickleballers, we're assuming we need about 60 stalls. And so that's where we're kind of going to look at this in a second, kind of taking a second look at this and bringing it back to you, saying our gut's telling us that this is probably overparked. But
Okay, Brent
does
wants
that
to,
answer your question, Todd?
Yeah, it does. Thanks, Scott.
Brent, would you want to address us?
Thank you. When we talked about this previously, and I think everybody was concerned about the parking there, and then when you added this additional parking space, Marty, there was some discussion about we're going to be looking in the future of possibly expanding the rec center. And so, I guess I look at it in the long term. It may be that at the current time it's booked, and there's more stalls there. But if there is a decision, which ultimately we're going to have to make, maybe not this council, but somebody else, about expanding, then we've got the parking there to meet the needs. And I'd say it may look like it's overbuilt for right now, but we're going to expand, and as opposed to having this, we just want to meet our needs right now because it's going to cost us $120,000. How much will it cost 10 years from now?
Yeah.
Tina, did you
I
have?
guess the difference is where we put the pickleball courts, right?
Yeah, it does, that does make a difference. And there's a couple things, Brent, exactly what you're saying, and we've asked those questions. Well, what does an expansion of the rec center look like if we look at an indoor swimming or something of that nature? And you can see the edge of that here in the picture.
Right.
That actually would probably impact that parking area because there's no way, if we're utilizing that whole thing, there may be a portion of that parking lot that may not even fit with the building. What we don't want to do is move the pickleball courts to where they would be impacted. Parking lots are a little bit easier to modify and deal with, but there's absolutely going to be some impact into that parking area if this is expanded all the way along the west side of the current rec center. And maybe it's not the full length, maybe it's a portion, but I don't know exactly where that line is. We know that there will likely be some impact along here that will be taking away some of the stalls that are shown. And so even if we don't relocate the parking lot and we try to just kind of narrow it up, it creates a little bit more open space, but we do gotta kind of keep that in mind that eventually, if that does happen, and we don't know when or how long, but how much impact will that have to that? We don't know exactly that, but we'll deal with that in the future at some point, so.
Hey, Marty, on the ones on the on the 45-degree parking, diagonal parking, they'd be open to the students and because they're on the street, right?
Sure.
So you gotta think that,
I mean,
Well,
that-
and,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
my question is just, so right now, we are enforcing our rec center parking with somebody that's running out there in the parking lot yelling, no, 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 these are ours, these are ours.
Correct.
Now.
Or ticketing.
What's that?
They ticket.
They do ticket?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Revenue. So then, no revenue.
It's not for us.
No,
It's
it's a ticket
school.
through the high school,
Okay.
Yeah.
but we do have an employee doing that.
So my question is, if we shared parking, we would have the same problem down there. And I don't know, I love the idea of shared parking just because I would love the shared
Cost,
cost,
expense.
which would alleviate those park dollars. But I worry about how to enforce when it's detached from the actual rec center. Now now it's just a park. And is that park employees, is that rec employees, who's gonna enforce? And when somebody actually comes to park for pickleball, how does that happen? Help me with that part.
Well, if we were to partner with the school district, then we would just outline certain stalls that would be for school use during the school year. And the rest of it would just be ours. So we'd have to determine how many stalls we'd be willing to allow the students to park in. And in essence, those would be theirs. Well, when the school is not in session, then those stalls could be used for public use. I mean, that could be part of the deal with the school district.
So we could say that all of the interior stalls were pickleball, and then the street parking could be
okay.
It'd be that way anyway.
Hey, just a minute. Scott, our last meeting with the high school, where Rob was with us up there at the rec center, about parking, was that they wanted it back. Is that correct?
That they wanted what, Mayor? Sorry.
Our parking for the rec center now is on the district's property. And
Well, our agreement with the school district says if parking is an issue and says the city is required to accommodate that. Now, I interpret that as we need to accommodate our people, not the school. So if we need additional parking for our patrons, then we need to create additional parking for our patrons. We're not under an obligation to create additional parking for the students.
Yeah, but, yeah, right, but, I mean, but they were asking for some of our existing parking back, weren't they? Weren't that what the high school was wanting?
Well, that was one thing that they asked. I don't think we should do that.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think that we should give up what we already have. I think we just need to build more to accommodate our growth and our programs and then in the use of the rec center. And the agreement, I don't says that we have to give that up. Yeah, I think they would like the full use of that, all that parking there, but I don't think it makes sense for us to do that as a school. I just want to approach the school and tell them, hey, we're accommodating our parking now. So if you need additional parking for the sophomores, then this is going to be your issue. The problem that we have is that we have kids that are parking on Locust, and some of them are blocking driveways and things like that. And we had an instance last year where a lady called the school district and said, I have a student blocking my driveway, and the school district said, it's not our problem. And they said, you need to call the city. And so this is the stuff I don't want to, I'm a little frustrated that the school took that approach. I just want to make sure we're taking care of our people. And so if we're going to be doing parking, if there's a shared synergy, I think that's great, but how much of a shared synergy is hard to figure out a little bit because of our high use period and their high use period. Some of those almost kind of intertwine a little bit when we get into those spring months. We're not going to have a ton of pickleball play. It will probably start in April, I'm guessing, or maybe in March when the weather gets a little better.
I think people would have been playing today.
But I don't think we'll have a crammed parking lot from pickleball until May, until it gets a little warmer. And I don't know how much of that's going to be during the day when school's in session, or if that's going to be more of an evening thing.
They've been playing tennis for the last 2 weeks.
Yep, I've seen them.
Scott, how many parking stalls are currently, allocated to be ours in front of the rec center? Do you know in that parking agreement, did it tell us how many stalls are ours?
I've got that number somewhere. I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Okay.
I think it's less than 100. Actually, it might be more. Well, I shouldn't throw out numbers. I'll need to look that up.
Well, 113, but how many do we
115.
need? About 15 more?
My estimation is 60 to 80 for us. I think, and that's not counting the ones on the street. The ones on the street, in my mind, I almost like the school to pay for those. It's going to be used by the students. I don't think our patrons are going to use that parking at all. I think they'll just be using our parking lot.
So how do you get the school district to pay for those ones on the street then, Scott?
We meet with them.
I think we ask them, and if they say no, then I don't think we build those stalls.
But are we going to have,
'Cause I don't think we need those stalls.
are we going to
for
have the
us.
same enforcement issues that we're having right now if we continue the share partnering agreement?
Yes. We're going to have enforcement regardless issues.
Yeah.
Because if we build it and we just say it's just ours, and a student sees an empty parking stall, they're going to go
Just gonna
park
go in.
there.
Yeah,
Can we
So either
talk,
we have to have somebody standing at the entrance at 8 in the morning for an hour and a half to make sure that no students are parking there, whatever we need to do.
can we
Scott,
have a discussion about the armory with them?
We've already talked about the armory with them. The armory is owned by the federal government. When that armory actually becomes available is anybody's guess. The school district is interested in that, and I think it makes more sense for them to purchase it and to build parking than for the city to purchase that and to build parking, particularly if we can accommodate our own by building this parking next to the pickleball courts. I don't think the city should. I don't think we need to be a party to that. And we can encourage the school to do that, but that's going to be up to them whether they're going to buy that land and actually turn it into parking.
Scott, if we build the 120 spots, does that completely eliminate the school, rec, and pickleball need? I mean, are we good?
I have to talk to the school about that. I'm not sure, because they have some numbers on sophomore drivers. And, right now they use our swim pool parking lot. And so in essence, they've been using that without our permission. I mean, we're okay that they use it, but they don't necessarily credit us for using our own, parking stalls that we own. But that's, I'd like to sit down with the school, show them this plan and say, here's what we're thinking is, do you want to participate or not? Because if you don't, then we're going to reduce this down. If you do want to participate, well, let's talk about what this means for you guys. Does this help? If we outline 40 of those stalls for you, is that going to help, or is that just not near enough for what you guys need? And then, I mean, I think we have to look at the school and say, well, what are you going to do then? I mean, what are you going to do with all this additional parking? And if they're going to come back and say, well, we want to take your stalls, I don't think we should do that. I think we just need to keep having that conversation with the school.
I think that's a valid point, Scott. I mean, we build a rec center and high school students use the parking. We build a swimming pool, high school students use our parking. We build a pickleball court, the high school students use our parking. We got a problem, and I think
Yep.
Except we built the rec center and we didn't have parking. So we had to get an
Oh, was
agreement.
that all their parking?
That's their property.
It's shared.
All that parking is on their property.
We don't
But
own
we
any
have
of
an
the
agreement with them, so you have to
Yeah.
remember that.
So
And
it's
they
the-
want to renege, the high school wants to renege on the agreement.
On what agreement? They want our
They
parking.
want their parking.
Well, can I just say one thing? So the agreement was that they would provide the parking and the property would stay in their possession. But we have to remember that we traded deeds and traded property and gave them some things as part of that. And so it's a little troubling that we're not getting the benefit of our bargain if they now come back and say, well, we own the ground underneath the parking lot, so therefore we want you to go provide your own parking. The intent of the agreement was if we needed additional parking as our rec center expanded, that we would be responsible to provide that additional parking. It wasn't anticipated, and I agree, it's not spelled out necessarily in the interlocal agreement, but the idea wasn't that we were going to provide additional parking for the existing usage. It was if we needed more than that as we expanded, we were going to be responsible to provide our own parking. Does that make sense?
So back, because I was part of that, and we switched property and all that. But that was with the district. Now, what we're getting is the pressure from the high school administration, I won't name names, that want that parking. They think, well, hey, that's ours. But then Rob has to put them in line and kind of say, okay, no, it's really, but see, there's that pressure that's,
It sounds like, Mayor, we just need to get everyone in the same room, on the same page, going over the contract, and just everyone communicating together.
I mean, ultimately, if it sounds like, at first I was concerned that we were building too much parking. Now I can see that maybe we do need this much parking.
If they participate, or
I don't
regardless.
know.
we'll
Let's have the
reach out.
discussion.
I've
Maybe
already
we
reached
ask.
out to Rob, hey, we'll come, let's sit down and let's find out if they.
I mean,
they
what I
wanna
don't want him to
participate.
do is I don't want him to say, well, if you build this, we're going to take back your
Well, no.
rec.
Yeah,
Or-
exactly.
Right? Or,
We don't want to do that.
yeah, we
Do you
got
want
to,
to engage in the conversation with, have some district people there?
Yeah.
yeah,
Because,
Not the high school.
right.
Yeah.
It needs
Right,
to be the right people in the room.
yeah, because in the swapping of the land, they got something as they expanded the high school up on the east side. And we gave up that land. And so it's a quid pro quo, and they got something and we got something, and now they're saying, well, we want ours back. Like,
Okay, let's play ball.
yeah.
Well, just so you know, I mean, I've
batter
reached out
says-
to Rob Smith to set up a meeting with him. And so, in fact, I think he emailed me yesterday with some times to meet next week. And Mayor, I'll communicate that with you so that you can
Yeah, I
be
saw those.
present when we meet.
Okay.
But,
And
you
there
know,
needs to
so,
be-
but I wanted to get some feedback from you as the council before I sit in that meeting with Rob.
There needs
And so
to be-
that's kind of what I was looking for, so that we can have a conversation with them to make sure that it's clear what their intentions are. And I think we need to have a clear understanding what their intentions are and what they are thinking about doing to accommodate their parking issue.
There
Okay.
needs to be part of a discussion about the use of the swimming pool parking lot as well.
There is, that has to be part of it, Brett, you're right.
It hasn't
Well,
been.
and part of that is also the parking in the residential neighborhoods to the north of the high school. They do park in front of driveways. They do park, they're lined up for probably 2 blocks north of the high school.
We almost need to renegotiate the
Scott,
whole thing.
can Tina be, because she was here when the original contract was signed, so can she be part of that discussion as well?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yes,
even,
sure.
and even Marty if necessary?
Yes.
And just kind of recap one of the things that I'm hearing from the rec and Dion. They're saying, well, maybe we need an additional 50 for the rec, 30 maybe for the pickleball court. So we're talking an 80 need, and we're talking 120 available. So do we want to build that extra 40? And I think that's probably more reasonable. We have 113 stalls. We're getting 50% more stalls by adding 50 stalls, right, almost?
Right,
And so
but the street gives us 36.
the street gives us 19.
But we
right?
don't have control
So a
over it.
total of 48, but there's already 30 there, right?
Oh, wait, 19 up, clear to veterans.
Right now, there is 30 parallel parking stalls. If, obviously, there weren't before because we had driveways and homes and all that kind of
Correct.
stuff. Right now, if you park
End to end.
all end to end, all the way up, 22-foot space, you're talking 30 stalls.
Okay, and
If we
and
do diagonal, it's 48.
And you're not including the 48 and the 120.
No. There's 121 in the parking lot. There's an additional 19 stalls. So it's 29 and 48. So there's an additional 19 stalls.
All right.
Total of 140 stalls that we're talking about additional if we do everything. And what we're saying is there's a lot of money, 120,000 just in the parking additional there. Plus there's another, 40,000 in the diagonal. And so those are the things that we got to be careful with.
So to answer Scott's original question, yes, let's talk to the high school. Let's talk to the district.
That's what we want to know.
Okay.
I mean, I just make comment as well. That's like the number one issue with housing. You look at Center Street and Provo. I mean, it's parking. There's no parking anywhere you go anymore. And so I think if we over park right now, I mean, with the numbers increasing at the rec center for our programs for the high school kids, like I think we'd use every stall year round.
I do too.
So
Okay.
Thanks, Scott.
thank
Okay.
you.
I got the
Scott, can
direction I need. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I just want to give the council really quick. So Horrocks is well underway on a design concept, and the plan was to try to get a bid out here by the end of April, first part of May. And so these are critical discussions to try to get resolved because we got to know how many we're building so I can get that bid out and so we can get it built by fall like we're trying to do. So just wanted to make sure this is something that is.
Time is of the
important to
essence.
know as soon as
yeah.
possible where we're going.
Of phase one, yeah, okay. All right, we good then, council?
Yes.
All right, we now move, since we didn't have a work session, but we would, I'd like to especially hear from our two chiefs. So if we'll have staff come up individually and address, and we may have some questions for you, how things are going in Pleasant Grove here with everything that's happening. Chief
Mayor, can I
Roberts?
start first
Yeah.
before we get to the chiefs?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we had about an hour and a half meeting today as staff to talk about how we're going to handle coronavirus. And I've asked the department heads to put together a 90-day plan with the assumption that things are going to kind of be a little bit how they are now. So with the assumption that potentially the library and the rec center could be on extended close down. And 90 days would put us into mid-June. And I sure hope we don't get that far, but I want us to plan for that far just in case. With the CDC saying they don't want gatherings of more than 50 people for the next 8 weeks, that pushes us into mid-May. So we just talked about it today. I've asked the staff to have their plan ready by this Friday. And we'll talk about a myriad of things, how we're going to handle our employees, making sure that they're staying safe, We're going to talk about the access of the public into our city facilities. We're going to talk about just a lot of it's going to be internal, how we're going to meet in the future. We're going to try to meet electronically as much as possible, encourage the public to phone us or email us and do those things electronically. And then we'll talk a little bit of, and we just need a touch bit more time for us to come back to you, because we might have some things that we want your feedback on in regards to access to City Hall, access to community development, some of these services that we provide. In some ways, we think we can do a lot of this and provide roughly the same service by limiting our face-to-face. Common sense tells me that there's going to be certain things that are just going to have to be face-to-face, but we're going to try to limit those the best that we can. So staff's going to be working on that, and we're hoping that we can have some of the things that we need to send out to you on Friday to give you an idea of the direction we're headed.
Okay, thank you.
And part of that too is staff for the next couple weeks. We're going to have a conference call every day, all the executive staff, to kind of debrief, because it is a fluid situation. There is a big conference call tomorrow with city managers, city leaders, statewide, to talk about best practices and protocols so that we can get a feel for what other cities are doing. Are they closing down their city hall? Are they limiting access? Or what are they doing with their rec center? We can all get a sense of the level of service that people are doing. I think this is just a unique time, and we're going to have this next 2 to 3 months where it's just going to be just different than how we've ever operated before, with the idea that eventually we're going to swing back to normal. But we're going to be recommending some protocols that are going to be a little bit different. They probably won't be as customer service friendly, but it is with the idea that we're trying to protect our employees from somebody coming in from the outside and spreading the virus. So that's just what I have to say in regards to that. And if you have some questions for the chiefs, then you can fire away.
Okay. Chief Roberts, you want to come up and just give us a quick report? What's the attitude of our officers out there? That's what one of my questions there. How's
good.
everybody doing?
Everybody's doing well. It's a scary time, but we've kind of taken a few steps at the police department to try to ensure our safety a little bit. Today we put the police department on lockdown, which basically means no public in or out. So we've stopped some non-essential things like fingerprints, no more tours. A lot of people come in to trade coins and stuff like that, and we've stopped all of that. We've taken our patrol teams and broken it down into 2 teams. So we have Team A and Team B. One is 6 in the morning and 6 at night. One is 6 at night till 6 in the morning. And so those teams never cross paths, just so if somebody gets infected, there's no cross-contamination, so we don't have to put everybody out if somebody does happen to contract something. So we've kind of done the same thing with our investigations division. So we have A group and B group, and so A group will work one day and B group will work one day, and those 2 never cross paths. So, I mean, we have to work together, because for safety issues, if officers go out on calls, there's always got to be multiple officers working together, and there's no way around that. But same with investigators. If they get called out to a crime scene, they've got to be out and work together, but we can at least have separate teams that never come into contact with each other, so it saves us that way, so that we don't have to worry about contamination issues if somebody does happen to come down with that. And so we've kind of put that into the rotation right now. And like Scott said, it's kind of fluid. It's kind of a different time. It's hard for us because normal practices, if we go out and arrest somebody, say for intoxication, we usually have to take them to the hospital and get a medical clearance for them, and the hospitals won't even look at anybody right now. They don't want us to even show up. So unfortunately, we're leaving a lot of intoxicated people on the street because we have no other option. The jail is very specific about who they'll take now, obviously, so it's usually got to be a violent crime or domestic violence or something like that. So we've had to change our procedures fairly drastically, and And we just have to take it on a day-by-day basis and kind of work together with the other departments and the jail to work on our policies and procedures.
Thanks, Chief. What, do you want to ask about the switch over to, on dispatch? Is that one of your questions?
Just give us a real quick report on the switch over.
So far, the switchovers went well. We're still being patched, so they haven't actually programmed our radios. That may be another month out, but the switchover went very well.
Okay.
We're working on North End Channel, and it's kind of changed. Every day they'll switch us to somebody different, so we'll be with Lehigh one day or Lone Peak one day, but it's went flawlessly so far. There haven't been any issues whatsoever.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else for the chief? No. Chief Thomas, would you come up and tell us how your personnel are faring?
Hi. So we've developed a fairly extensive plan for how to handle this and at pretty much every level. Our biggest challenge would be that we are a one-station facility. And if we had multiple exposures where we lost several of our people, it would be tough to man the station. And so we would probably end up having to rely on some of our friends, our neighbors and stuff. But we do have a step-by-step protocols in place on exactly how to handle things and what to do. Interestingly, most everything has fallen into place. We've gotten supplies. We've been able to work through a lot of that. We did place one order, which was interesting, for some protective clothing, and figured that we could get it Amazon Prime. Next day, 2 days later, they said end of May.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we're the only ones looking for some of that stuff, but we found some others. Our biggest challenge right now is the guys can't get anything to eat. They can't get into the grocery stores. They can't. They're having a tough time, and they're being very ingenious with what they can put together with what they can buy. So it's kind of interesting.
I want pictures. Send pictures.
Actually, that would be fun on social media.
The Corona diet.
Well,
I think you start a campaign.
what's interesting is I can't name anything that they've really cooked so far.
That's okay. That's why we're going to let the public name it.
So, any questions for me?
Thanks, Chief, for all you're doing.
Just thank you.
So
Make sure
one
to
of the
tell all
things
your
that you
staff.
might know is our protocols are really interesting, and some of the things that we'll do, which may seem a little counterintuitive and stuff, like the way we decon, say, an ambulance, we have decontamination protocols in place. The end of that is that an ambulance will sit out in the sun in the open with all the doors open. And so if you drive by and there's an ambulance sitting out there and all the doors are open, then that's actually part of the decontamination process. And so it's not it's not that we forgot and got sidetracked. It's just part of the decontamination. The UV light from the sun is a great friend. It keeps things clean. It's worked really well for a really long time on this earth. It kills a lot of things, so we're going to take advantage of it when we can.
Actually, Europe puts their babies out. They wrap up their babies and put them out in the sun for, in the mornings to get the morning rays. Moms have been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
We all need to go sit in the sun for a while.
I have a meeting in the morning with my captains where we will finalize all of our protocols, which is a combination of CDC protocols and some things that we've added that we felt like were necessary because of our unique situation. And once that's done, we shouldn't meet again. The most difficult thing that we have is social distancing.
Yeah.
We work as teams, tight teams, and so it's not really going to be possible, but we'll do what we can. Some of the admin guys will start working a little more out and about as opposed to being in the office so much. We'll try and limit some of that. So.
Okay.
And the station's closed down, by the way. We have it locked down. If people want to come in and visit with us, then they can make an appointment. But it's got to be strict business. We don't have any public relations or anything going on right now.
Okay, well, thank you, Chief.
Are
Director-
the subcontractors that are cleaning, are they doing an extra level of, okay. Deanna's nodding.
Well, you know
Director
what?
Giles, come forward.
Good idea.
You guys
Guys
don't
gonna-
need to sit clear on the back row down back there.
Social distancing, hashtag.
Yeah, Mayor, is it okay if we just hear from each director, kind of see what their plan is right now and how they're doing? Do we have a minute to do that?
That's what we're doing.
Kind of where we are.
Okay. Well, he said just the chief, Scott said the chiefs. I don't know if you're hearing just for that, from them or everyone.
Well, our intent was, I mean, there's things that we're putting into place, but I would ask that you give us a little time to really kind of put this together instead of tonight us trying to tell you what we're going to do when we haven't fully fleshed all that out.
Okay.
Maybe just a report of what's been going on.
Just a general report.
We're busy.
Thank you.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, the trails are insane. I was working on Callie's Cure today for 2 hours. 51 bikers came past me in that time frame.
Wow.
And I could look down on Murdoch and it's wall to wall. So the parks are being used, the trails are being used, people are out and about. So we're busy trying to keep up with all that. You know, it's springtime, so that's our busy time of year. So we're going to see some interesting things at the cemetery in the next couple weeks with this, on how people do the burials and those types of things. So we're working closely with the funeral homes and their ideas and their desires on what they would like to do with the families. But for the most part, you're going to see graveside services for the next little while. So other than that, we're just busy. Grass is starting to green up. That's a bad sign.
Yes.
Thank you.
It is a good sign.
Yeah, I see a lot of people in the park, especially the downtown park.
That
every day
downtown
was just-
park is packed.
Sherry, do you have anything you want to share with us? You haven't got a library, so what the heck, you know? But you kind of do, so you're still putting stuff out.
Just tell us what your staff's doing right now during the closure.
Yeah, so we are still, people are still turning things in. So as we check them in, everybody's wearing gloves, wiping down every single item that comes in with disinfectant before we put them away. Debating if that's really necessary or if we should just put it to the side for 3 days while the virus dies, but it's also cleaning our books so they look better. So that's one of the things we're doing. Staff has been working, a lot of people have been working on future programs, other projects like that. But we're trying to get it so that people go home as much as possible, just to avoid interaction with each other. So we're trying to move things online or talking to each other as they plan. But honestly, we're going to run out of those types of things and maybe have to do what people think we do, which is read.
So Sherry, do you have any programs right now that you're doing interactive with the public, like Zoom or a live stream or anything, like story time or anything?
We haven't done anything like that yet. Some other libraries have started those things, and that's a possibility, although it does might require a little bit of interaction. Some libraries are also doing a curbside pickup, but the state library has discouraged that just because it's still bringing potential germs in and sending potential germs out. So that's still up in the air a little bit. We decided to hold off and see.
Do you have someone at the library that would be capable of doing like a live stream or setting up that technology, like for story time or something?
We could probably work that out. The state library is also looking into having different libraries do them and then broadcasting them.
Okay. That'd be awesome.
As a
Yeah.
group, kind of taking turns.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Director Wilkins. When are we going to open the pool?
Coming. Thanks for the slides. We're going to move forward with that. We're looking forward to getting those up to date. They're 24-year-old slides, so we're looking forward to working on those. The recreation center, we counted, we have about 16 programs that have been affected right now that we're trying to get information out to people, letting them know. We had championship basketball games that were supposed to happen this week for men's basketball and junior jazz. And so it's just like the very end of these things and we can't just finish them off. It's pretty frustrating.
So is that, Tyler, how are you communicating with people enrolled in those programs?
So each coordinator is reaching out to their individual programs. And so it's just a case-by-case basis right now that on those programs. We do have a frequently asked questions on memberships because people have been wondering about their memberships, if they get a credit or what we're doing. We right now, because it's been the 2 weeks, we've just said for all of our annual and semi-annual, we're just adding 2 weeks to their memberships.
Okay, good
That'll
idea.
obviously, we'll see what happens in the 2
good idea.
weeks. And so,
We're gonna give you 6 months.
yeah, whatever time frame we need to do. As far as interactive, I have great staff. We came up with an idea to keep people working out and
Yes,
keep
my
people
kids
going.
are talking about it.
And so we just have all these different fitness instructors twice a day coming in, just with our fitness director and them on Zoom and on YouTube, just videos
Awesome.
that they're live and they can actually be utilized at any time. But we've got tremendous feedback just from starting today of people just excited that they can do something at home.
Absolutely. Thanks for
That's
taking the
awesome.
initiative there. I
I
saw
love
that
that.
come up on yoga and
Yeah.
contemplated joining in, but I think my coworkers would have not
Yeah,
liked
she even
it.
invited their kids to join in with
I think it's
them.
great.
Yoga session with your
I
kids.
love that.
Everyone needs it right now.
Yep.
So, yeah.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
So yeah, we're just, as soon as we get the
That's
green
cool.
light, we're ready to go again. But we have people coming in and cleaning, our staff's disinfecting everything. We have a great custodial staff, Dean and John. They've been doing all the floors, all the equipment. So it's going to be a clean, nice rec center to come back into. So
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Marty, do you have anything to Public
Well,
Works?
it's a terrible time to have to do this for all of the things that are going on. Obviously, it's the beginning of all of our construction projects, bidding, pre-con, pre-bid meeting today for the 1300 West project, one tomorrow for the PRV project, pre-construction meetings for a lot of developments going on, 2 or 3 scheduled this week to try to keep developers moving as well. And it's a challenge. And one thing that we did today, for example, yesterday, we have a mandatory pre-bid meeting that typically for all of our projects, that all the contractors get the same information. Yesterday, we decided to make that not mandatory and then allowed them to, we also moved it over here so we had a little bit more space. Sometimes at Public Works, with those meetings where every chair is full and you're, arm in arm with the next person. And so we moved it over here so we could get a little more space. With both those meetings, we ended up we normally would have probably 10 or so contractors. We had 3 that decided to come to that pre-bid meeting. Reality is we'll create the minutes from that meeting and send them out to the rest of the contractors, post them to the website, and they'll get all the same information. And they aren't highly critical or technical projects that we were concerned about on that. So, but that will be continuing to be an issue. We've got in the next month here, we've probably got another 3 or 4 projects that are almost ready to be bid and go out that way. So that'll be a challenge. We're talking about how to do that remotely, potentially on Zoom or some other formatting. And so we're going to be continuing to look into that as well. But we've had a good discussion with our water department today as well, just talking about the need for that critical service, staying active, making sure that we've got people to do that. We've got some plans, called and talked with all the public works directors in the surrounding communities just to make sure that they knew that if they needed help, we could help them. And they reciprocated that as well, that if there was a time that the guys are sick and we can't get the right people that are certified to do the work, that we could try to work together to get the things done that need to be done to maintain service. So there'll be some plans, as Scott said, that we'll be working towards to try to make sure that we're keeping our employees down there, because one of the thoughts I had is get one of those water guys sick and they're all rubbing shoulders and quarantine all of them, and then we're all stuck with what are we going to do? And so we're talking through, well, what does that mean? And let's make sure that we're at least limiting that potential. Not that we're going to be able to 100% reduce all of that risk, but how do we limit that? And so there's some good discussions going on about how we do that. And so I think, as Scott has said, as we kind of come out with that plan, it's going to try to address some of those things to how we can operate a little bit better with that social distancing concept. So, but yeah, things are going well, and we got a lot of things going on. So busy time.
Yeah, Thank you. You've heard when the county is going to bid out First East?
We haven't, they are still in the design process for that, so they haven't got a schedule yet. I think the decision was to use the same engineering firm that did First East Design, because they've obviously got that, but I don't think the plans have been put together to
Okay.
finalize that. And also, we know that we're working with Images Salon as well on that, and still need to get with Amy. I've called her twice, but haven't been able to get in contact with her, so we'll be back in touch with them to work that out. So I'm guessing, Mayor, that it's gonna hopefully be in the next 3 months that we have that going. And I have met with both Richard and Glenn Tanner to go over that, and they're
Okay.
both on the board that we're gonna get it done this spring, so.
Well, we got the trees out of the way for them.
The trees are out, and it sure opens up that corner. It's different every time I drive up, but it's just kind of just a different feel right through there, so.
Marty, I saw that they were, they had, while I was coming here, they were taking out the tree at the old community development hotel. I know that's not our property, right? But is that because of the widening of the road, or what?
No.
That's just probably just,
Improving their property. I don't know anything about it as far as if it is, it's with the county, but maybe
I know
it's
that's
just a
not our
private
property and we're not-
property
No.
decision.
yeah.
Taking
Okay,
out
thank
both
you.
trees. There was two trees.
There will be traffic control happening there. I got a note that there was an issue with one of the lights. We think it was damaged when they put in the culinary water line on the northeast corner there, or northwest corner. And they'll be in there fixing that, I think, this week. So just kind of be aware that if you see traffic cones and things like that, it's not due to that project. It's just a matter they're trying to get the conduit under the road to get the new wire pulled over to that street light. So
On the northwest corner?
northwest corner by Images Salon is the
Salon.
one that's out
Yeah, they were-
because they broke the line
They
there.
were pulling on some conductors there today,
Yeah, so they'll be,
because they were trying to figure out what was going on there.
I think they should be done, and it shouldn't be too long of a process, but you might see that it's not the First East project happening, so it's just some wires being pulled.
Good.
Thanks, Marty.
Kathy? Okay. Anything else for us?
Probably share a couple things. So our group, which includes Kathy, Kyler, myself, and Tina, and the admin there, we're going to meet. We're having a Zoom, actually, at 9 o'clock in the morning to discuss making sure that we can still do payroll and making sure that we can get our vendors paid, we can still bill our customers, and we can still receive funds. And so those are some things, and then just access to just City Hall and what we can do to reduce that, but still serve the customers and the citizens. So we're going to be meeting in the morning, just to talk about all those things and some other things, so.
Okay, sounds good. Tina, anything?
Just to maybe reiterate what I mentioned before about the court schedules, we're reducing in-person hearings as much as possible. Just implementing social distancing in my department, as difficult as that is. One person does have a office door they can shut, the other person's in a cubicle in the hallway, so that's not easy for her. And I'm doing nothing for Scott while he's sick at home. And then, just like everyone else, reaching out with my cohorts in this state. All the city attorneys have been on lines, resolving issues that have come up because of the coronavirus, and just what do we do with our public meetings? What's constitutional? How can we keep constitutional protections in place? Those types of things, so.
Yeah, thanks for that update today. That helped cover a lot of questions.
You're welcome.
I have a civil matter scheduled first week of June. Got notice that canceled it. So they're out at least till June.
Kyler, do you have anything for us?
I did want to inform you that our Communities That Care position, Tamara, has started. And she's doing a lot of work from home, but we are up and running with that position now.
Okay, good. Well, Scott, do you have anything else for us tonight before I ask the council if they have anything?
Just express appreciation to the department heads for their efforts in all of this. They've been fantastic. As you can tell, they're already on top of a lot of this, and we still have some things that we need to sort out. But our people are very professional and good at what they do, and we're in good hands. So, and I appreciate Tina for doing some of the heavy lifting with me being out. I am feeling a lot better, and I'm hoping to be back in the office on Thursday. So, and I forgot to mention, when we do these debriefings as staff at our 10 o'clock meeting, I'll be sending the council an email after those debriefings to keep you guys briefed on a daily basis with what's going on. So we want to make sure you guys know what's happening, and then if you do have any questions as we go, don't hesitate to send us an email or give us a call, or if you have suggestions or whatever, that'd be great. So we want to make sure that you guys are up to date on everything, because I know you get inquiries from the public, and we want you to make sure you have the latest and greatest.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Well, let's, Todd, what do you, have anything you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, maybe two things. While we were sitting here, I did see that the Utah Department of Health suspended all dine-in services starting Wednesday, so that's all throughout the state. So that's kind of a new one that happened here while we were meeting. Second one is I met with, or I talked with Rick at Fox Hollow, and it has never been busier. So Rick is trying to figure out how he keeps his staff away from the public. But so we talked about a couple of ideas, and pleased with where he's headed. So I think it's good that people are going out and golfing. I think that's
Healthy.
that's healthy right now. But we've just got to make sure that our staff and the carts are wiped down, and he has a handle on it. So I'm very confident that he and his team are coming up with the right plan. So.
Okay. Councilmember Jensen.
Just to follow up, a lot of our businesses, a lot of our restaurants were already proactive and already started a lot of this, like maybe a few days ago and a day ago last night, that started just really pushing the takeout and the drive-through and even the home delivery, right? And I'll have to talk to Chief Thomas. There's some ideas there, so.
Wait, what just got suspended?
All in dining.
Okay, I thought that had
2
already been.
weeks.
For 2 weeks.
for 2 weeks.
So curbside pickup,
Drive up,
drive up is fine.
so, okay.
Yep, that's
So
it.
your taco amigo still intact, okay?
And they
Yep.
were very, very busy today.
Yeah, their drive up is.
Again, 801-785-4718, and you can just pull right up.
So I have a daughter that works there, and she was supposed to get off at 3. She didn't get off until 5:30.
Are you
So
serious?
it was just packed. Anyway, so we have a lot of new businesses in town. And, for example, one of them, and I'm worried about the people that have been here for a long time that have especially eateries. But we have some new businesses down in the Grove that are just barely opening their doors. So, for example, Purify Wellness Center, which is in the second tower, they've only been open for 5 months, and they closed their doors today. So, and that was mandated by
What was the business called?
Purify Wellness. So I think what
Massages.
so no more massages, no more yoga. I mean, she's that high-end spa. So with Tears, she shuts her door. And I think what's going to happen, I think what we need to do is figure out when this lifts, what we can do to support all of these. She's thinking about having another grand opening. But we've got a lot of people that are going to have a financial stress. So, and I'm very, very mindful
Well,
of them.
so along with that, you'll see an email going out from the chamber and other chambers and
good.
their stuff that the federal government has, and you probably got some emails from
SBA.
representatives from Senator Lee and Curtis that the Small Business Association has made a lot of stuff available for them, so, but anyway,
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I don't have anything.
good.
Strawberry Days is still on. No.
For now.
For now. And the pageant will be postponed. It's a little bit too close, but coming up in April, so probably in May or early June, depending on when she can get the high school. So, pageant postponed, but that will still happen. We're just using the word postpone instead of cancel for a lot of things, whether it's library rec, Strawberry Days. But right now, Strawberry Days is still on. It's far enough out to where Lisa felt it was still appropriate to keep the date. So, just a heads up on that.
You okay on toilet paper, Sid? So I just.
I am now, thanks to
Okay.
Marty.
If you're
Well,
not,
hey, I mean,
if you're not,
We are family.
we're all family, so anyway,
Macy's,
let's know.
Macy's just announced that people over 60 can come an hour before they open
Yeah.
up.
So, are you,
So-
Brent, are
and
you
I'm
being
the
serious?
If there, I'll get you some if there's some
I
there.
appreciate that.
And
Marty,
first responders.
not only did he give me toilet paper, it was home delivery, so I appreciate that. So that was
So
very
they are
kind.
also working on first responders too for that type of service.
That's awesome that they're doing that.
That's not what that said. It's 60 only.
Oh,
Over.
Well,
over
maybe
60.
some older first responders.
So I would remind everybody, you probably keep a full fuel tank in your car, okay?
Absolutely.
And, but I just want to let you know, because we're kind of with the trucking and whatever, and the Department of Transportation has let up their rules on hours of service. So anybody hauling medical supplies or food or commodities, they can just drive whatever they need to drive.
Wow.
Then I got a text from, because we're on this chain here, and because it affects some of our truck drivers, that the truck stops are all just are gearing up and making sure they're open. They got meals for the truckers, and they're cleaning their showers after them, and I don't perceive that they're going to have a fuel problem, but as long as we can keep the commerce moving, then I think it'll be all right. And I really hand it to our employees in our city to keep on going, and especially our police and fire. And, it just takes, the telecommunication companies, they've got to keep the internet going, or it really will be in a fix. And so that requires a lot of bodies and people out there, and your gases continue to turn on, and you're gonna have hot water
Very grateful.
and heat, and, and, hey, the lights are on, and the grid's gonna stay up, but those people are all out working. It doesn't do it by itself, so there's people out there doing everything so we can continue to maintain what it's like to be here, even though we're inconvenienced by some of the things, so. It's great to be here tonight and see all the whites of your eyes. We may not be doing that close up,
Next
so I'm glad we met here, and look forward to our future Skype meetings, or however we're gonna do those in the future for the next weeks here. So, does anybody else have anything this evening? If not, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's city council meeting.
And I'll second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 We're